"Don't just stand there," she said. "Chris Hani has been assassinated outside his home in Dawn Park." I went cold. Chris Hani, the Chief of Staff of the military wing of Nelson Mandela's African National Congress, the ANC, and also General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, the SACP, was no ordinary man. A recent survey had found he was the most popular black leader in South Africa after Mandela himself. He was a hero in the townships, where young people would turn out in large numbers to hear him deliver fiery speeches. If my generation, already referred to as the lost generation by sociologists because of our disrupted education and alleged hopelessness about the future, if that generation had a hero, then it was this man. Charismatic, energetic, articulate, he had built a reputation as a brave guerrilla fighter during his 27 years in exile. He was also loved by the intelligentsia, who were enthralled to his ability to discuss Marxism in one breath and Sophocles in the next. He was hated by large swathes of white South Africa for his allegiance to communism and his uncompromising stand for racial justice. He helped direct the ANC's armed struggle, infiltrating the country with guerrilla fighters from the organization's exile camps to set off attacks, like the bombing of the Air Force head office in Pretoria in 1983. Yet, Hani was not a warmonger. He saw the possibility for a new South Africa, one within the grasp of freedom and peace-loving citizens. In the months before that fateful Saturday, he had been a key member of Mandela's team negotiating with the government to end apartheid and usher in non-racial democracy. He called for peace everywhere he spoke. When the news editor told me Hani was dead, one thing was clear as the crisp blue autumn sky that day. The pain and the anger in the black community would be deep, so deep that it might trigger a new racial war, worse than the one Mandela and his comrades were trying to end. The world was changing, and so was South Africa. In 1991, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics had collapsed, bringing the Cold War to an end. The year before, after 42 years of formal apartheid modeled on the United States' Jim Crow laws, talks had begun between Nelson Mandela's ANC and the whites-only government led by President F.W. de Klerk to transform the country into a multiracial democracy. It was a time of hope after 3 decades in which the ANC had been banned, thousands of its leaders incarcerated or exiled, and those anti-apartheid activists still inside South Africa detained, tortured, or disappeared. But the now 3-year-old democracy negotiations had been slow, punctuated by bitter sectarian violence. For 3 years, South Africa had been in limbo. As talks progressed, reached stalemate, or broke down completely, political prisoners and exiles returned home, and yet the land they returned to was hardly freer than the one they'd left. Freedom was messy, and it was taking too long. In June 1992, as political violence escalated, the democracy talks were called off. Hope in the morning was followed by despair in the evening, with no sense of what the next day would bring. Yet, just 9 days before the devastating news of Hani's murder, the talks had been restarted and all sides once again had high hopes for progress. Now, with the assassination of Hani, the talks could very well collapse, with militants on both sides taking up arms again. Throughout that day, as the anger mounted and talk became loose, as right-wingers drove to the Communist Party head office in central Johannesburg and shot up its facade, and their friends taunted black people in the streets, my feeling of dread increased.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.